Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to, I guess, part 2 of my 2020 championship predictions. And today it is all about those drivers. And many of you will already know that I'm not good with these predictions. I'm generally way off the mark. But I've decided to make it a little bit harder for myself this year by predicting the entire top 20. Oh dear. What could possibly go wrong, eh? If you didn't catch it, my Constructors' Championship predictions went up over the weekend. You can watch that behind the eye at the top right of the screen. But if you're ready, let's jump straight into this one. So 20th place, I can't believe I'm doing this. 20th place is Nicholas Latifi. I feel like I'm writing him off before the season has even started. We've not even seen him in an F1 car yet, and I've put him last. But that Williams, for me, is not going to be finishing above 10th in the championship. Spoiler alert, by the way. I should have said that at the start. Never mind. And I think George Russell, with a season under his belt and how good he did do last season despite not scoring, I think he's going to have too much for Latifi this season. And that's also why I've ultimately put Russell in 19th place. That Williams may have taken a step forward, but it's got a lot of ground to make up, and I can't see how they are going to take a big step forward into that midfield this year. They've closed the gap, and that's a great start, but I think they're still going to see their drivers finishing 19th and 20th this season. I've just realised it's kind of difficult to do this without repeating what I said on Saturday. But anyway, I'll carry on. 18th place. This is not to try and wind up Dan, but I've gone with Romain Grosjean. I have my reasons. Again, I'm not very confident for Haas this season. I hope I'm wrong. But also, he is probably one of the most unlucky drivers on the grid, or he certainly was last year with all those reliability problems. And I also think, and people will probably be like, well, yeah, sure, he did this years ago, but I kind of think he's well past his best now. I would love, and there are two drivers on the grid that I think this about, I would love them to prove everybody, including me, wrong. I just don't think he's going to. So yeah, 18th place, but I will admit that it was a bit of a toss-up between him and Antonio Giovinazzi, who I've put in 17th place. I'm hoping Gio will be able to build on that second half of 2019 as we get into this season. I'm just still not totally sold on him. I think I've said this before. He's done much better than I expected him to coming into Formula 1, but I'm just not convinced by him. And I hope this year he has a really good season, but I think 17th is probably going to be about right, because I don't think he's going to beat Magnussen, who have put 16th, even though I'm not convinced Haas are going to have a particularly good season. K-Mag is a quick guy. He is consistent when him and Grosjean aren't running into each other. And I said this last year, and I'm going to say it again. If that car is capable of picking up points, Kevin Magnussen will pick up the points. We saw that in Australia last year when the Haas had that really good pace and they kind of won that midfield fight that weekend. Grosjean was also having a good weekend to that point, but Magnussen finished best of the rest because the car was capable of doing that and he delivered the points at the end of the day. So 16th for K-Mag, and then I've gone with Lance Stroll in 15th place. That might surprise a few people, or maybe not. I can get quite defensive of him. He just can't do Saturdays. He just can't qualify well. If he sorted his Saturdays out, I'd probably put him higher on that list. But the team said last winter that one of the biggest things they wanted to work on with Lance was his qualifying pace, and that didn't work out again last year. So maybe he's just not a one-lap driver, if that makes sense. I do think with that racing point essentially being last year's W10, that he will pick up some good points at the very start of the season, but that's not going to be enough to sustain him if he keeps qualifying down in 16th, 17th, 18th place and putting himself on a back foot before the lights have even gone out on the Sunday. He's got to sort out his Saturdays. And like Grosjean, he's the other one of those drivers that I really want to see perform well this year and silence some of the critics, including me. 14th, Daniel Kvyat, or Daniel Kvyat, or Daniel Kvyat, or whatever we want to pronounce it as. I'm going with Kvyat anyway. But yeah, 14th place. I think that feels about right. As I said on Saturday, you know, the points last year were very much skewed by that podium in Germany. Again, not taking anything away from him. And despite that, he did still end up 13th last year. So I think that's right. Around 14th. I don't know. Kimi Räikkönen 13th. It's Kimi. That's kind of all I've got to say on this one. I think he'll be driving the wheels off that Alfa Romeo this year. He will have the upper hand on Giovinazzi. He's probably going to split the Tauris, but I don't think he's going to have enough in that car to break into the top 10. But again, this is Kimi Räikkönen. He's one of those drivers that somehow just manages to pick up 7th and 8th places out of absolutely nowhere, and he could be one to keep an eye on. Kind of gave it away there in splitting the Tauris. Gasly in 12th place. I'd love to see him top 10 again. But I think we can agree that the reason he was so high in the top 10 last year was because, number one, that podium in Brazil, which was awesome, by the way. Watched that race back the other day. So much tension towards the end. Fantastic ending to that race. Not so much if you're Alex Albon, of course. But also because, although he wasn't exactly brilliant in that Red Bull in the first half of the year, he was still in the third fastest car on the grid. So put him in that AlphaTauri for the full season. I think 12th is the worst he's going to finish this season. he might be able to sneak into that top 10 with some good results. I mean, I'm kind of hoping for a season of Germany's and Brazil's, but I don't think that's going to happen. We'll see. 11th place, I was really torn on this one. I really was. But I've gone just with Lando Norris. And it's not a comment on Norris. It's a comment on the person that I've decided to put in 10th place, which is Esteban Ocon. I do think Lando is going to be very good this season. I think he will build on what he'd done last year. He had a very good first rookie season. Yes, a long way off Sainz, but Sainz is far more experienced. So he did have a good year last year. He's going to build on that this year. And I think he could threaten that top 10. He might even get inside it. But Esteban Ocon has already said that year out of Formula 1 really hurt him. So in my really weird head, he's going to come into 2020 with one hell of a point to prove. He's going to want to show that he should never have been dropped in the first place. So he's going to come in, try and prove his point. He's going to have to be on his A game because he's got quite an impressive teammate, let's face it, in Daniel Ricciardo. And I am, once again, as I said on Saturday, quietly confident, or not so quiet anymore, but confident that Renault are going to have a very good season. So the combination of the fact that he's already a solid driver, he's got a point to prove and the car could be very good, or looks like it could be very good, is going to be what puts him inside that top 10. But I feel kind of bad for not writing off Lando Norris, but for not putting him inside that top 10, given it is his second year. But I just think, yeah, it'll be close. It'll be very close in that midfield, as we already know. 9th place, Sergio Perez. Kind of as with Kimi Raikkonen, it's Sergio Perez. He just does it, doesn't he? He's so consistent. And that racing point, I fully expect will be quick in Australia. And if you are a midfield team that has a car that is good enough to maybe be top 4 early doors, Sergio Perez has got to be on that list of drivers you want behind the wheel. We know he's quick. We know he's consistent. We know he can extract the maximum from a car. And if there's a little bit of chaos, more often than not, he is there to capitalise on it. Look at how he performs in Baku. And kind of back to that point on consistency and extracting the maximum out of the car, that racing point was pretty poor at the start of last season, yet he drove it the best he could, and once they got on top of their problems or caught up in development, he was pumping in result after result and points finish after points finish in the second half of that season. And despite the slow start, still ended up inside the top 10. So yeah, Sergio Perez, 9th place, because again, it's Checo. Battle for best of the rest, I'm going with between Ricciardo and Sainz, and I'm going to put Carlos in 8th place. And this is again going back to my confidence on Renault this year. I don't think they're a top 3 team or anything stupid like that. I don't think they're going to absolutely dominate the midfield. I genuinely believe it is going to be incredibly close between them and McLaren. And on top of that, with a driver like Ricciardo at the wheel, as good as Carlos Sainz is and as good as he was last season, I think Danny Ric will just pip him to 7th place. And he's another driver with a point to prove as well, isn't he? There are more than a handful of people out there now that think because he had a bit of a rough season with Renault last year, he's suddenly a bit trash, which is absolutely ridiculous. And he is going to be pushed all the way by Esteban Ocon. Not that Norris isn't going to push Sainz, but I guess what I'm kind of saying is Ricciardo will want to assert his position in that team as the number 1, if you like, or make that his position. After all, that's probably why he went there. But yeah, I think that midfield will be so close. Again, names in a hat, draw them out of the hat and come up with your own 7th to 20th place, because I really do think it's going to be that close, particularly in that fight for 4th place. And then everything that goes on behind that as well. Sort of 7th to 10th place, I think we're very close as well. Top 6 then, and 6th place, probably not going to be too much of a surprise, Alexander Albon. Really like the guy, think he's going to have a much better season than perhaps many are expecting, but he is number 2 at Red Bull. He is going to be the one that will be sacrificed on strategy and anything like penalties if they're needed. What I mean is, like, if Honda wants to try something out in the power unit, although that will probably be AlphaTauri first, but if it's going to be a Red Bull driver, it's going to be Albon. But as much as I'd love to see him challenging that top 3, I just can't see it. So 6th place for Albon, 5th place, Seb Vettel. It's a difficult one. It's such a difficult one. I guess he's another one of those drivers I'd love to go into this season and prove people wrong, show that he's still got it. And maybe he will. Maybe he will challenge for the title. Perhaps it will be that close that it's between 5 drivers, maybe 6 drivers. But with Seb, this is just a gut feeling. I just feel like 5th place is about right. Not could adrift. We're not talking, 100 points off his teammate or anything like that. And I'd love to be more optimistic. Yes, he's made mistakes over the last few years. Although Ferrari are going to be better than they're making out, they're probably not going to be the team to beat. Possibly on pace, not even a top 2 team at the start of the season. But we'll see. I could be way off. They could rock up in Australia and it was all sandbagging and they're a team to beat by a mile and Seb Vettel becomes a 5-time world champion. But I can only go off what I've seen in testing and what my gut is telling me. So 5th place for Seb, 4th for Leclerc, but I really wanted to put him 3rd. I'm still not sure on that one. He had a very good first season at Ferrari last year. He did beat Seb Vettel, of course, over the course of the season. And I do believe, along with Max Verstappen, that he is a future world champion. So I think he's going to be quick this year. And maybe I do want to stick him top 3. The problem I've got, I'll tell you now, Bottas in 3rd. I still think that Mercedes is the car to beat. I think Bottas is going to take another step forward as he did last year. So keep improving, keep evolving, keep growing, whatever you want to say. And I just, without being accused of something with this next line, I just think Mercedes will make fewer mistakes than Ferrari will this year. Oh, I did this last year, didn't I, with Leclerc and Verstappen in that battle for 4th and 3rd? I don't know. Do you know what? I'll stick with what I've written down. 3rd place for Bottas and 4th place for Leclerc. And if I'm wrong, whatever. Let's face it, all of this is going to be wrong. But anyway, let's carry on. 2nd place, Max Verstappen. In Chamber's prediction challenge that went up last week, I said that I think Verstappen is going to start the season very strongly. I've got a very good feeling about Red Bull early doors. And we could see Verstappen maybe picking up a win in Australia. I mean, look at what he did last year in that Red Bull, in their first race with Honda, in a car that wasn't amazing by their own admission. He's much better placed this year to challenge, and they looked very quick in testing. And yes, I know, it's only testing. We can't read too much into it, but based on the information we have, they look like a threat to Mercedes. So I am expecting a very competitive Verstappen early doors and a very competitive Red Bull. However, over the course of a season, obviously going off the assumption we're getting at least 21 races, we still don't know for sure, but at the moment we are. But over the course of a season and in a proper championship battle, I still think Lewis Hamilton would just edge it. The Mercedes will be better than Red Bull, just on raw pace. That's how it feels at the moment. They are very much still the team to beat. And I think with Hamilton's experience and his experience in dealing with championship battles, not just his general F1 experience, but he's been in this fight for a championship more times than Verstappen, inevitably, because he's been around for a lot longer. He's had the most competitive car. And that's all so important in a championship fight. It's not just about having the best car. A driver's experience and mentality is going to come into that, and it could be critical. So Max Verstappen 2nd, and it doesn't take a genius to work this one out, given that I've already said it, but also we've used the other 19 drivers. Lewis Hamilton will make it title number 7 this season. But I do think, and perhaps more out of hope than expectation, I do think we're going to have a much closer fight this year. I don't necessarily think we'll go all the way to Abu Dhabi, but I don't think it's something we're going to be able to declare as a foregone conclusion by the summer break. But anyway, that is it for the 2020 drivers' predictions. The team predictions, like I say, went up on Saturday. And apologies if you watched that and I repeated anything in this video. It's kind of difficult when you're predicting teams and drivers because they all work for each other. I will be back soon with more content as ever. We are so close to the season opening Australian Grand Prix this weekend. If you're not hyped, you should be. Simple as that. You can, of course, though, in the meantime, follow me over on social media, and all of the links you need for that are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching, and I will catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye.